Thank you, Cheryl. All right. I wanted to share the screensaver we've had because it's sort of the title. And for those of you who didn't see it, um, it's evoking, and the music we had evokes is the soundtrack from The Lord of the Rings, which is J.R.R. Tolkien's hero's journey. At 3 volume, so 500,000 words. Lovely. Read it many times. But those two, those of you especially checking in later on YouTube, those two sayings underneath are from Lord of the Rings. Courage is found in unlikely places, and oft hope is born when all is forlorn. A couple of Tolkien bits of wisdom. And, we're looking at Frodo's little house uh, in the Shire. Comfy little place built into the side of the hill, beautiful place. And the essence of almost everybody's idea of the hero's journey is that you leave the known for some reason or another. In a lot of cases, it's by accident, but not always. But we'll talk about that. But you leave the comfort of your own home and you go off on a journey, sometimes under the direction of somebody, but sometimes by mistake, which is how life works. And you discover something unknown. Nobody knows where the journey leads, and you discover something unknown that's precious, and then you don't just enjoy it for yourself. You basically bring it back. Excuse me, bring it back home and share it with those uh, in the family, in the neighborhood, in the community. So it's a kind of circle. And there's a number of different views on this. You can go to the Zen Oxfording Pictures, 10. It's a circle of 10 stages. Excuse me. There's a lot of different forms of this journey, but it always means a leaving home, having an adventure or a kind of journey that you don't quite know where it's going, where it's going to end, and then you come back home. So that's pretty much all the traditions. Sorry about that. The Celtic tradition is really interesting because it always usually involves somebody hunting a deer in their own patch of woods that they know real well, and by following the deer, all of a sudden they end up in a strange wooded place, a dark wood that they don't know at all. So a lot of times life just leads you into the journey. Things happen in your life, and it calls for courage. Courage is found in unlikely places. In the Lord of the Rings, there's many heroes, but the ultimate hero is Frodo and Sam, and these are two hobbits. These are two little people, physically little people, and they're the Tolkien's idea of heroes are ordinary little people who take action when they need to, and that makes all the difference. We tend to think of heroes as Tom Cruise or these terrific people, or now we have superheroes, Captain America. These guys are bigger than we are, but the original idea of the hero's journey was it's just everyday folk like us that do it. Okay, well, I think I can get rid of the screensaver now. You've seen that. We'll get on to a few poems that'll point us a little deeper on this, because I think, if nothing else, hopefully you realize to be here now, you wouldn't be here now if you weren't on a kind of meditational or contemplative journey of the spirit, which is a hero's journey. Think of any meditation you've ever had. You don't know what's going to happen. You let go of your normal activity and you sit still in the silence that's common to all the traditions. And one never really knows. And you don't know where it's going to lead. So to have a contemplative practice, you are already on the hero's journey, you see. So So let's begin with someone who spent his whole lifetime talking about it, Joseph Campbell. Just a little quote from him, which I think focuses for our purposes, because again, we're a meditative, contemplative community. Meditation or in the silence is sort of the center of that keeps this community together. It's the cream filling that holds the two wafers of inspiration and conversation. We have silence right in the middle of what we do. So this is Campbell on the hero's journey. He says the goal of the hero trip down to the jewel point is to find those levels in the psyche that open, 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 and finally open to the mystery of yourself, being Buddha consciousness or the Christ. The privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. That's the journey. I want to just go back through that and point out a couple things, and then actually we'll have a few more poems and we'll double back to this. The goal of the hero trip, down to the jewel point, down to the very center of it, where the richness is found, the jewel point, is to find those levels of the psyche. Psyche is a Greek word that was used for soul. Which was in their concept, the very depth of yourself. Psychology really technically means the study of the soul. Uh, to find those levels in the psyche that open, 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 and finally open to the mystery of yourself. And Campbell, when he wrote that, made it a capital S, which is how the Hindus do it when they talk about yourself, or then your true self or your ultimate self. They will put a capital S there, and so he's talking there about opening, 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 which essentially is what you're doing when you're sitting in silence, eyes open or closed, and you're letting go of thinking, you're letting go of any thoughts of the path, and you're just opening to what comes. And we'll develop that. Finally, open to the mystery of yourself. Uh, a hero has to be open to the mystery. If you know where you're headed and you know how it's going to turn out, there's not much of an adventure to it, and there's certainly denying the mystery of a life. I mean, I never picture myself at 75 sitting in front of a computer on Zoom with 30 or 40 people in Kentucky talking about this. I just, you know, that's just not the way life is. Life is a mysterious journey. Whether you're a hero or not, the hero just opens, 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 finally opens to the mystery of yourself. And then we'll double back on this, being your true self, being Buddha consciousness or the Christ. I want to double back to that in our last poem, what that really means. And then he says, the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. That's the journey. That's the journey. Well, that's one view. And I think that sort of front loads some things, because we are a interspiritual contemplative community here, where we're working this this thing all the time, where we're trying to well, when you look at the word religion, it means religio means to relink, to forge a link with something that has been forgotten or broken or is beyond us. And that was the original meaning of the word before there was institutions or whatever. And when you're in the magical early stages of conscious evolution in human beings, they were trying to link up with the magic. There's some magic here. And in the very early archaic times, hundreds of thousands of years ago, they were making figurines of pregnant women, because that was probably some of the biggest magic, that the female could birth a being out of apparently nowhere. So a lot of the early artifacts that we have, the anthropologists found that go way back to the archaic times. Uh, they're feminine and they're pregnant women who can the delivery system of some new life. But this idea of religion, I think, let's just get the basic idea of what it means, not to join, the Catholic Church or be a Baptist or be a Muslim. It really means to link. Uh, the early view of reality was there's earth and there's heaven, and then the human beings are in between. We stood on the earth, our feet are on the earth, our heads are pointing towards heaven, and so there was that three-way kind of. Again, three is hard to beat when you're looking in a cosmic way, and that human beings were somehow the link between heaven and earth. Now we're on earth. How can we link to um, what was beyond us? Which transcended us to the so a link to the transcendent. Uh, Thomas Keating, who's I think a great Christian mystic and just a great world mystic, passed away 5, 6 years ago. But one thing he always said is that to think that God is absent is the ultimate human illusion. To think that God is absent, you could say, go even further, to live as God is absent is the ultimate human illusion. And the G word has a lot of baggage for us because we all learned about, if we learned about God at all, it was for small when we were small, and the God was small, too small. We outgrew that God, and so we think, well, God's, forget it. Yeah, if you're back here, you're looking for something. It's uh, what what are we trying to connect with? You wouldn't be here if you don't want to connect with something bigger. I don't think, unless you just happened in there by mistake, in which case you'll probably leave before we're done. Here's a poem. This poem will appear Monday in the Monday newsletter, newsletter. And if you don't get that, you can just go to looseleafhollow.com and sign up. This is called Heaven Revisited, and it sort of covers this territory. O ground of being, O ground of all being, this cosmic womb births infinite blessing in waves of darkness and light. O ground of all being, this cosmic womb births infinite blessing in waves of darkness and light. We are all stardust, and to stardust we shall return. So we remember that. Now, here, this is always and already heaven. We can't avoid heaven. We can only avoid being present, open, and available to it. So, day after day and moment after moment, we can say yes to now, here, this. I'm going to go back through that just a little bit. It starts with the transcendent, a kind of cosmic picture. Paul Tillich called God the ground of all being, everything that exists, dust bunnies to galaxies, and everything in between, including us. The ground of all being was his word for the ultimate reality, uh, which, depending on, when you use the G word, the God word, depending on where you are on the levels of conscious development, stages of development, God could be a very different thing. And as you move up that, it gets bigger into where it can become infinite reality. So I like Tillich's term, oh, ground of all being. This cosmic womb births infinite blessing in waves of darkness and light. I'm always writing these poems for myself because this is just my experience, and I'm trying to make it clear to myself. And so, 75 years, at least in this incarnation, this is what I've come to, that we're in a cosmic womb that is birthing infinite blessing in waves of darkness and light. Now, those waves of darkness, exactly what the Sufis call a blessing in disguise. You know, things happen in life. As as we know, tragedies happen. People get hurt or die, and we'll all suffer and get old. Yeah, but to see it all as an infinite blessing in waves of darkness and light. Rumi, the 13th century Sufi mystic, he said most people see this universe as suffering. Certainly, early Buddhism did. Uh, but he said, I feel the universe is primarily graceful. I've come to that same place. Doesn't mean that that's what it is, but all you can share is your own experience. All I can share is my own experience. And that's how it feels, that the whole universe is one wave of blessing after another, but the dark ones are challenging, and even the light ones. I lived my whole life sort of defending myself against that. Well, that's over now. And then just shift to the personal. We're trying to link the personal experience. We're human beings, the personal with the transpersonal, and this next stanza does both. We are all stardust, and to stardust we shall return. We literally are. I mean, modern science says, we're made up of the elements of some star that went supernova, yeah, at some point. And then the earth came from that, and all life has come from that. The components that we are the components of that star. We are all stardust, and to stardust we shall return. Well, to me, that's sort of a really uplifting thought, that we're not just mentally trying to connect with the bigger universe. We are that. We are stardust. To stardust we shall return. So we remember that. We remember that now, here, this is always an already heaven. Now that's sort of challenging to understand that. It was challenging for me to understand it. It took years. But now, here, this moment now, right here, this is always and already heaven. Well, that's sort of mind blowing, because what falls out of your life is point B. I call this point A living. I wrote a poem about it called Point A Living. We're always trying to go, we're at point A and we're trying to go to point B. And when we get to point B, whether it's heaven or you get your degree or you meet the love of your life, there's always a point B that we're chasing. And so we're really, for me at least, I lived most of my life heading towards point B, and gee, when I got there, it would be great. But in between, I wasn't enjoying myself much. And you can do that with heaven. Oh, well, it's the vale of tears. But when I die, then I'll get to point B. I don't think it works that way. That's not my experience. And plus, you're looking at a guy who had no idea of the meaning of joy until I was in my early 30s, 32 to be exact. When, after dropping into meditation for over a dozen years, little joy got through. And joy is not later, and joy is not in the past. Joy is now. Joy is here. It's right here. It's just this moment. And so now, hear this, which is a kind of mantra for me now. Uh, when I'm going into the future, thinking about the horrible things or the great things that will happen, or I'm going to replaying the past, when I realize I'm wasting my life doing those things, I'll take 3 breaths. Breathe in, now, here, this, bring myself back to reality. And I think now, here, this is always and already heaven. Heaven's eternal. How could eternity be later? I had that thought, but I didn't have words for it as a young kid, listening to the nuns telling you, later when you die, you go into heaven, which is eternal and goes on forever. Well, can't be eternity if it has a start point later, you see? Yeah, so just maybe now, this right here is it. So then the third stanza sort of pulls this together. You can't avoid heaven. You can't avoid now. You can't avoid being here. You can't avoid heaven. We can only avoid being present, open, and available to it. Now, in that 3 lines, you've got the reason, why you have a practice. We can't avoid heaven. We can only avoid being present, open, and available to it. That those 3 words again. That's the agenda. At least for me, when I sit in meditation, to be present, open, and available to the transcendent, to the surprise, to the mystery. Present, open, and available. POA. Power of attorney. Power of the advocate of the spirit. Present, open, and available to it. So day after day and moment after moment, we can say yes to now, here, this. It's a choice. And I lose that all the time. I even have a rock by the window over here, because this is my meditation space. And I can get lost in meditation and be thinking my ass off, and which I could do anytime. That's not what I'm supposed to be doing in meditation. Sometimes I wonder, what the hell am I doing sitting here? And I sort of look over at the rock, and it has my sacred word on it that reminds me what I'm doing here. Not just in meditation, but in life. I have the French version of the word. It's oui. Yes. I like the sound of oui much better than yes. Yes sort of ends. Oui goes on forever. So I remember that, oh yeah, I'm here to say yes to whatever's coming up, even if I'm freaking out. You know, you know. So you can say yes to right now, right here, just this. You can decide to do that. You can live a life based on that. So I think that's just what my experience is. How resonate or don't resonate to it. It's interesting to find out. That's why I put these things out. People tell me, "Oh yeah, that line. I really don't like that line." Somebody said that about the last, bless the best. I can't go with the beginning of that poem. They said, so we had a good conversation about it. It's all right, I'm not saying this is absolute truth. I'm just saying this is what I've worked out. Now, I want to double back for a minute to the what Campbell said. It boils down to the mystery of your true self, and he says being Buddha consciousness or the Christ. Now, he's not talking about being a Buddhist or being a Christian, but he's talking about these 2 energies. Energy of the Buddha is a unique energy, and it's still, it's like a big bang of a very kind of unique energy, and it's still banging because it's still informing lives. There's energy there, and the energy of the Christ is, which came into this world about 500 years later, is still going through the universe. The Big Bang is still happening. Astrophysics guys would say, no, it's still banging. The universe is still, it's hard to believe, the universe is still expanding. And then you say, well, what is it expanding into? These are mysterious. Even the sciences, it brings you to mystery. How can the universe be expanding? What could it be expanding into? See, but so he's talking about these 2 energies, the energy of Buddha consciousness and the energy of what he calls the Christ. Now, I think they're different, but they're not in opposition to each other. and nor are they to understand these two energies. Are It's interesting. I have the picture of the Buddha and the picture of the Christ behind me, Jesus on the cross, on his way to being the Christ, to being another kind of energy. Uh, and that's I can relate to it because both of those energies have informed my life, and they're still both coming out of me. Now, what does it feel like to actually have those energies in your life? What does that feel like? And you can talk about enlightenment all you want, and it's helpful to there was the various words for that. But I wrote a short poem recently. It finally made it onto the page. It was about 2 or 3 pages of handwritten stuff, and now it's like 25 words, enlightenment in 25 words or less. What does it feel like? What are these two energies if you say yes to them and they become part of your life? What does it feel like? Well, this is what I've got. I just called this enlightenment. First line, how does it feel? That's a great Dylan line, I'm a great Bob Dylan fan. How does it feel? That broke open modern poetry and modern music when he sang that. That's the refrain and Like a Rolling Stone. So enlightenment, how does it feel? A growing freedom from anxiety, ripening into a growing capacity for the fullness of love in our ordinary everyday life. How does it feel, this enlightenment? How does it feel? A growing freedom from anxiety, ripening into a growing capacity for the fullness of love in our ordinary everyday life. That's how it feels. First of all, a growing freedom from anxiety. Now that's, if you can imagine, visualize a river now, because I think a river, a wild river, not a canal like the Erie Canal, a wild river is the closest I can come to it as a metaphor for a life. It's a wild river. And like all rivers, it knows how to get where it's going. It has a directionality. It knows how to get to the sea. And see, that's that, and it's really never unlinked for this image. We could be unlinked from the spirit for even a moment. Merton once said, he said, if we were ever, he agreed with Keating. He said, if we were ever for even a moment to be unlinked from God, we would disappear. Boom, nanosecond. And so no river could have that idea because the river, they know via gravity how to get to the sea, and they're relentless. Now, what our culture has done, and it's a great metaphor for what's happened to human beings, is we've dammed up these wild rivers for flood control, for energy, all that kind of stuff. But a wild river can be turned into something else. It could be dammed up. Okay, it's not free. The Colorado is a kind of trickle as it goes into the ocean because we've dammed it up. And that's an image too. And we grow up in a family, in a culture that puts these dams in us. Hell, I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel and this is what we're talking about when we talk about growing freedom from anxiety. That's really what we're talking about when we talk about joy. Because this anxiety that all humans feel, it can go anywhere from a mild refrigerator hum anxiety all the way to panic and everything in between. And there's, we do know that this form, at some point we do know that this form, this body and mind is going to turn back into stardust. and that makes our egos anxious. Me, me too. When your dog dies, me too. You see outside everything, these plants are dead. You know, uh, so there is some anxiety which comes with the fact that we know that. I'm not sure how many species know that, but we do. So there's always a little bit of anxiety, especially for the ego. But this freedom is the joy. And I didn't have any joy in my life. 12 years of meditation gave me just a little uh, pinprick hole that, and the joy got through. I said, what the hell is this? I didn't even know what to call it. Yeah, this freedom from anxiety, a growing freedom from anxiety. That's joy. Now that's so if you got a wild river, it has two banks, and that's the Buddha bank. That was really the Buddha energy is there to uh, work with what he called dukkha, suffering, which is the basis of suffering, is that anxiety, and and uh, and we get invent, we just get inevitably dams put in our wild energy. Believe me, I taught school, and school was, it operates that way, unfortunately, at its worst, so where you dam up the kids' energies. And I was in my first grade of 60 kids and one nun. And boy, if you got up out of your seat to go run around, you learned a lesson right away. No, you don't do that. So, who knows what our homes were like. But so there's a kind of a damming up of wild energy, of life energy. So the Buddha is about liberation from that, freedom from that. That's definitely the Buddha energy that's still going. People go to Buddhism to be liberated. In early Buddhism, that was the whole idea. There's been three turnings or three evolutions of Buddhism itself, and now maybe even a fourth turning. But in the beginning, which is how do I get out of this mess? How do I save my own ass? Well, meditate, and then I'll get out of it. Okay, but a growing freedom from anxiety. Now, it ripens into uh, a growing capacity for the fullness of love. So we've got freedom and joy, and then a growing capacity for the fullness of love, to be able to be loved, to give love. I didn't have that early in my life. Uh, have it now. And that capacity, that ripening into, 500 years later, there was Jesus who became the Christ. That's the energy. That's why that's what love means. It doesn't mean an emotion. It means a capacity for fullness, uh, to receive love and to give love. And it's not some kind of thing you got to go to a monastery to do, because the ultimate thing is that in your ordinary everyday life, you see. Uh, and that's the other bank of the river. So you got freedom and joy on one, and then you got fullness and love on the other bank, and in the middle is the river, you see. So they're complementary. There's no river that has only one bank. Out here, our creek does now. It's running into it's overflowing both, but really when it comes back down to it. Yeah, and so that's the light and the dark. That's Buddhism and the Buddha and the Christ. These are energies, you see. That's what it feels like. Uh, that's the jewel in a way. That's the treasure you find. It's a growing freedom from anxiety, and that ripens into a growing capacity to receive and give love. Love is energy. Uh, it's the strongest energy in the world. The freedom is to actually access this energy. You put the two together. Uh, Love's not just an emotion; it's energy. It's a healing energy. It's a full feeling. You see. So that's, I think, what he was talking about, and that's what you can ripen into. That's why when we did the Jesus model of the hero's journey, it went through 8 steps, those beatitude steps. Zen guys have 10. Uh, there's even the heroine's journey, which is very interesting, how it feels to a woman. and there's 10 steps for that. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it, but this is the way I look at it based on having a meditative practice. Who doesn't want to have less anxiety, and who doesn't want to receive and be able to give love more fully in your ordinary everyday life? That's the thing. The point is not to do contemplation. The point is to live a contemplative life, which is a third way. Again, Merton was really clear about that. And the Trappists didn't understand it uh, because they didn't let him anything he wrote the last 10 years of his life after he had his big awakening on the street corner. Uh, and even a later, bigger awakening in Sri Lanka about, I think it was a week before he died. He had these awakenings, and he got bigger. He got bigger, and he was writing about not just monastic things, like he was in the beginning of the Seven Story Mountain. He was writing about how this is integrated in the lives of the people on the street. Yeah. See, he broke out of that, monastic kind of view because it was too small. He didn't give it up. He just got bigger. And he became, his last talk, the day he died, he said, the whole purpose of life is to live by love. By that time, he was free, as free as you could be. And he was also, he knew what the freedom was for. It was to have a greater capacity for fullness and love. And then poof, he's stardust. Well, hell of a movie. So, so to wrap up here, uh, I've got a little quote from Meister Eckhart, who was another great hero. 13th, he sort of went between the 12th and 13th century, his lifespan that, where Europe was a total mess. We tend to think that what goes on in our life, in our country, and our government or whatever is the world's worst mess or whatever. Again, it's like the last thing. The world's always been a mess. It's not our job to fix it. It is our job to um, learn how to say yes to it, yes to the mess, and to bless people, even in the middle of the mess, to be able to give love and receive love. Love heals, and then to heal people in the midst of the mess. Now, Eckhart was a terrific healer with his words. He was a Dominican. He was a preacher. His sermons are unbelievable. I mean, they're as far out as anything uh, that anybody's come up with. Merton was reading Eckhart at the end of his life. Thomas Keating was reading Eckhart at the end of his life because you got to work up to this. Well, this is a short, a little 4-line thing that will send us into uh, our our next break, and then bring us to another sitting. Eckhart said this. It was in a longer poem that's called "Setting Forth Together." One of the cool things about Tolkien's Lord of the Rings is a bunch of guys set out together, the Fellowship. You know, this is this kind of hero's journey is something where it really helps to have other people who are setting out with you. That's the being a community. Both the Buddha and the Christ knew that community was important. The hardest thing to do is to try to do this all on your own. Yet only you can show up and sit. Only you can live your life. So it's a kind of linking together of both an individual life, uh, as Campbell said, this is your chance to finally find out who you really are. You're unique, your total unique path, and yet we're walking along with, well, today 30 or so people. That's lovely, and we need both. I need these sessions as much as anybody who comes because it's good to walk with people to have fellow pilgrims. So he says, setting forth together, he says, be radiant for those who long for hope. He said, be radiant for those who long for hope, to brighten their journey, setting forth together on what you'll discover is a wayless way. He coined that term back in the 13th century, the wayless way. He says, so be radiant for those who long for hope, to brighten their journey, setting forth together on what you'll discover eventually is a wayless way. But that's also part of the hero's journey. Campbell says, Joseph Campbell says, he says, all of a sudden you're there, and this is not the forest you're used to. You end up at an entirely new, like, dark wood, as Dante goes through the Divine Comedy, another hero's journey. 1,000 lines of Italian poetry, 9 rings, going down through hell, 7-story mountain, coming up purgatory, go through a wall of fire, and then there's 12 folds in this rose that you get to when you get to the very center where Saint Bernard is, and his Beatrice, and God too. So people have their own structures for this, but the Divine Comedy is in the middle of my the road of my life. I found myself in a dark wood, the true way completely lost. Who doesn't know that? I've been there. And so when you're in a dark wood that you don't know at all, and the first thing is when you realize that you want to back away. That's just human. What is this? All of a sudden, you find out your wife wants a divorce. All of a sudden, you find out you got a diagnosis and you got a fibroid, and then it gets taken out and it's cancer. Who's been here before? It's unknown territory, you see. So we pull back. That's human. But the hero then takes a step forward. To be courageous does not mean to be fearless. It means to, even though you are shaking in your boots, you take a step. And it's a wayless way. And that's what Eckhart said. And Campbell said, well, when you see a path in this dark wood, know that it's not your path. So you don't follow the way somebody else went. You make your path by walking it. And that's also, so it really helps to study these things. But in the end, you have to be shaking in your boots, but then you take a step. And then the next step. That's courage. Courage means open heart. That's the open he's talking about, you see. So these are, I think, helpful things, especially when you're in a dark place. And many people, I talk to people every week, and then, I know my own feeling of, pulling back. That's, a lot of stuff's happening that never happened before to me in this country. And I think a lot of people are realizing that. Well, that's all right. This is the hero's journey. And to have a contemplative practice, to be without a contemplative practice at this time or at any time in life, that's rough. I'll end with Bill Stafford, my poetry teacher, really. He said, there's a thread you follow, even though it seems like you have no idea where you're going. And Bill always felt that the spirit, reality, would give you a thread. So, some guidance. It's there. The threads it's easy to lose the thread of life. It's easy not even to see a thread. So there's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you're pursuing. You have to explain about the thread. But it's hard for others to see. While you hold it, though, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen. People get hurt or die, and you'll suffer and get old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread. Ron and I have talked about this poem for years. And the thread's been many things, and when you have a good poem, even one that's short, uh, depending on where you are in their life, the thread can be a different thing. Great poetry, Hamlet, great poems. They have a lot of. They're not literally one thing. They have a lot, but this idea of that there's guidance. It's there, but how do you get that guidance? And how do you lose the thread? Um, I would suggest, at least on one level, for this community, uh, the thread is, well, certainly on one level, the thread's my daily practice of sitting, of opening, and then the threads come. And when I miss sitting, even for a day, uh, I feel it. I feel it. Yeah, yeah. There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change because the basic thing we do when you sit is you open. You're present, open, and available. I'm not sure God disappears. It's we're not there. We don't show up. Well, all right. I think that's enough for now. Thanks for listening. We'll be back at 15 after the hour for our sit.